Hello there, YouTube. Welcome to my first Unity tutorial. And since this is my first time doing this, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I do know what this functionality I'm about to teach you is because I made it myself for a game I'm working on. Link in the description to the trailer if you're interested in that. But today we're going to be working on a basic flying mechanism, which essentially all it does is it lets you move forward, to the side, backwards, and you can look around with the mouse and you can move in the direction that you're looking. And also at the end of the video, there's a little bonus on how to animate which direction the object that you're flying faces depending on what button you're pressing, which is just a little side thing that is just a useful thing to know if you want to animate stuff with button presses anyway in Unity. So we're going to first, I've opened a blank Unity project, so you can attach this to most any game that you're working on. It is 3D. So we're going to create a new C# script, and we're just going to call it, I don't know, flying. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is I usually like to get rid of these. You don't have to. They're just little reminders of what the functions do. They're for people who don't know what it is. And if you haven't programmed before, this should be an easy thing to get into. So what we're going to do first is we're going to set up a few variables. The first one being a public float movement speed, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just how fast you want your thing to fly. I'm going to set it at 100. Now, the reason I'm making it public is so that in Unity, if you make something public and you go into the editor and you select the object that your script is on, you can see a little like sort of input tab of that number, and you'll be able to change that from there. So if you want to change it without going into the code and use this script on other things, you won't have to hard code it a new value. You can just change it from the editor. So that's what public means. We're going to do public float reset speed. We're doing this so that we can work with a sprint button that once you're no longer sprinting it, you can revert back to your original speed, which otherwise you wouldn't be able to do because you had just changed your speed value when you press the sprint button. There might be a better way to do this, but I find that this is pretty easy and it works most of the time, or all the time. Speaking of shift speed, the next thing we're going to have is public float shift speed. We're going to set that to 150. You can set it to anything just higher than your regular speed, and you can do trial and error to test that. Public float control speed. This one's a bit harder to explain. This is how fast your turning controls work. And also, all of these are floats, so you got to put an F at the end of it, which allows you to have decimals, and you can change smoothly between these different ones. And also, you don't have to call them control speed, shift speed, reset speed, movement speed. These are your own variables, so you can name them whatever you want, but I find this is easier. We're going to need, this is for camera movement stuff, public float horizontal. I'm just going to shorten it to horiz sensitivity, if I could spell. Wait, is that right? Yeah. I'm going to set that to 2. Public float pause. Oh wait, no, I don't need this. Yeah, this is for having a pause screen, which we aren't going to do here. We're going to need public float reset horiz sensitivity. Sort of the same idea as the reset speed. And then we're going to do the same thing for vertical sensitivity for both the reset and the regular. And then next we're going to set a private float yaw 0 and private float pitch 0. And the reason these are private is because you don't need to change these. They're just going to stay at 0. And this is yaw and pitch are both things for camera. And I'm pretty sure, now that I'm thinking about it, we don't need the reset for these because I think that also is for pausing. But I'm going to keep it here for now just anyway. The next thing we're going to do is we actually don't need the start function. In update, we're going to check, we're going to make sure that yaw plus equal horizontal sensitivity times input.getAxis mouse x. So what this is doing is basically just attaching that yaw value to your mouse movements. This is negative equals or minus equals vertical, which allows you to then move your mouse and then move where the camera is looking with your mouse. Okay, so now it's going to get into a lot of easy, sort of repetitive stuff where we're just going to check which button you're pressing and let that determine where you are going to move. So first, if input.get key code left shift is what I'm making my sprint speed. You can look up other Unity key codes so that you can make other buttons your shift key, but I feel that this is a pretty good shift key. So then what's going to happen if you press that button is that your movement speed now equals your shift speed. Else, which basically means if you're not pressing left shift, then your movement speed equals reset speed. So that's what I was talking about when so your movement speed is 100. If you press the left shift, now it's 150, and that's what the value is. So in order to set it back to 100, you need to store that value somewhere. And the next stuff is going to be very repetitive. So I'm only going to do it once, and then show you the changes, and then you can make the changes yourself. If input.getKey keycode.w, which is generally the forward button for games, then you're going to get transform, which is basically your the forward, sideways, up and down of your game object that the script is going to be attached to. Local position plus equals transform.forward, because W is forward, times time.delta time, which is basically just seconds passed in the game editor, which this is independent from frame rate. So you want to keep it that way so that you don't move different speeds at different FPS, times control speed. So then what we're going to do is we're going to get this WASD, just change that to A, S, and D, and then alter which direction you are then facing. So the weird thing about Unity is it doesn't, like, it has a transform.right, but no transform.left. So in order to get a transform.left, you need to do negative transform.right, which is really weird. For S, we're going to do negative.transform forward, and for D, we're going to do transform right. Okay, so we're going to save that and we're going to test it. So in the Unity editor, what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete the main camera, or we're going to right click on our hierarchy, 3D object, cube. We're going to name this cube flyer. Next, we're going to attach a camera, and then you can see this little camera preview back here. We're just going to move it here so that you can, when you're in game, this is what your player will look like. Then we're going to attach the flying script. Oh wait, hold on. We're going to do this actually. We're going to take now that the camera's positioned with the player, we're going to take it off the player, and instead we're going to put the player in the camera. And then we're going to give the camera the flying script. So the thing that's actually flying is the camera and not the model. And now you could do this for first person by just putting the camera in the model, but for this example I want you to be able to see the model of the actual flyer move with animations. Alright, so now that we have the script attached, we can see that our movement speed is 100, reset speed is 100, shift speed is 150, control speed is 50, and then all of these are 2. And I think we can properly test this. Now the only problem we're going to run into is that we have no way of telling that we're moving in the world, but what we do know is that our position is changing by checking this. You can see that our X is changing when we press D, and it's adding, and then if you hold A, it's subtracting, which means it's going the opposite direction. Holding W changes your Z axis, and then S does the same thing but in reverse, so that you know all the buttons are working. You have no way to see that. So what we're actually going to do is in the scene we're going to create some objects like, I don't know, a sphere. And we're going to just duplicate that. In your project, you'd most likely have an actual scene set up. which would you'd be able to see yourself flying a lot easier. But for the purposes of this, we're just going to set up some things to allow you to see it. And one thing that I forgot to show was cursor locking. So something with cursor locking is you're not going to be able to look around properly if your cursor is moving across the screen. So you're going to want to oh, this is the wrong code. Sorry about that. So what you're going to want to do is lock your cursor so that it can't just move around. So it moves around properly, like a game would. So we're actually going to need our start function back. It doesn't matter that it says private void. And then in there, we're going to have cursor.lockState equals cursor lock mode dot locked, which just locks the cursor, and cursor dot visible equals false, because you don't want to be able to see that cursor just locked in the middle of your screen. And I was right, we don't need the reset. Okay, we should be able to see it once you save that. Just make sure I save that. You should be able to see the character flying around properly. Okay, I can't control the camera. That is a problem, but the good news is you can clearly see the character's flying, and this is how fast you'll go past it, like that. Hold shift. Slightly noticeable difference. It's kind of hard with less objects. So I forgot one line of code after these, which allows you to actually move your camera with the yaw and the pitch that you've set before, which is transform dot Euler angles, which just allows you for smooth angle transitions, equals new vector 3. Vector 3 is what you use for position, X, Y, and Z. Pitch yaw 0.0f. So this just sets exactly how it's going to move while these are being updated. And let me just test that. There you go. You can look around and fly like this. And it allows for pretty solid movement. And one last thing we're going to do is define animations. So first we're going to have to create the animations, which is the fun part. You can go crazy with this. And Unity's animating is very intuitive, and I like it a lot. But here's the thing: we don't want to animate the camera, because if we animate the camera, it's going to move your actual view when you press different buttons, which will mess with the flying because of the camera's position being changed. What we want to do is we're going to change the flyer's animation. So we're going to create a new animation just called flying. We're going to have flying idle. For flying idle, we just want this to be still. So we're going to just record it. Oh, we don't want to do that. Just add a new keyframe, or add a property, transform, position, and just change nothing about that. Next, we're going to create a new clip, flying up. What we're going to do is we're going to just record this, and one frame of it at a 30-degree angle, or you can do any angle that looks good for you. Create a new clip, flying down. I'd recommend making it go down by the same measure that it went upwards, so 30, but just positive instead of negative. Create new clip, flying right. Do 30 there. Oh, I didn't record that. Always important to remember this is clicked. I'm actually going to do just 15 here. Create new clip, flying left. Boom. And I think that's all of them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the actual animator itself. Flying idle is the default. We're going to make a transition from any state to up, down, right, and left. Then we're going to make a bool here, just by adding a bool. Booleans are true or false statements, so we're going to be testing if flying up should be true or false, depending on what button you press. We're going to call this one up. Create another one called down. Another one called left. And another one called right. And then one called forward, which is basically your idle. And then we're going to have any state into idle too. I forgot about that. So what we're going to need here is it doesn't have an exit time. It does have a condition, which is forward for your idle, that it's true. We're going to move this over here so that it starts right away. That doesn't show a good transition there because it's from any state, so I guess it's going from idle to idle. This one, you're going to make sure that it's up is true. Going to move this to the beginning. Let's see if this shows a perfect... Oh, that's a bit weird. Okay. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to change something here. Instead of your position for flying idle, I'm going to add... Let me just remove that property. I'm going to add rotation. Because position is going to store where you are, and we don't want you teleporting back to somewhere every time you press... Or every time you're not flying. Let's see if that changed anything. Yeah, so you can see it transitions pretty smoothly into the next animation, even though we don't have any keyframes taking you there. It'll just automatically interpolate what the animation would look like between two different still frames. So flying down, same thing. Just move that over here and make sure that down is true. For flying right, same thing. Right is true. Move that over here. And for left, left is true. Move that over here. And then now in the actual script, let me just check this is all correct. In the actual script, what we're going to need to do is set up some more variables. First, we actually only need one, which is public animator, and I'm just going to call this get anim. So if key code is W, which is forward, we're going to okay, what we're going to do is actually, so the names are a bit weird, the way we set it up. So what we're going to do, you'll see why it makes sense when we actually get into there, because you may have noticed we don't have an up and down key, but we have an up and down animation. What we're going to do here is we're going to do get anim dot set bool. So we're just referencing the animator that we're going to plug in later, the public animator that we have, dot set bool down true. So it's going to animate downwards when you're moving forward, which you'll see why in a second. For here, get anim dot set bool. This is left, so left true. And then get anim dot set bool up to true. And then the last one, get anim dot set bool right to true. Now you don't want these to stay in that animation when you're when you've stopped clicking. When you stop clicking, you want it to revert back to idle. So what you're going to want to do is check if exclamation mark input. That just means if not. So if your input isn't get key key code dot W, and you have to put two and signs for and if input isn't input dot get key oops a oh wait hold on key code key code dot a, and if input isn't get key dot or no key code S. You kind of get the idea here now. Just gonna fill this in with the rest. Okay, so once you're checking that none of those are pressed, then we're gonna do get anim dot set bool forward to true. Else, which is just saying if any of these buttons are pressed, then get anim dot set bool forward false. And you know, while we're at it, we might as well also, just to be safe, turn off all the rest. So down is false. Up is false. Left is false. And right is false. All right, so we're gonna go back to the editor. We're gonna go to the scene. Now we just gotta let this load a little bit. We're gonna go to the camera, and we're going to, or no, we're gonna go to the actual flyer itself. Hold on, keycode, what? What the? Never mind, I don't think that's a problem. So we're gonna go here, which has the animator, and we're going to, actually, right. We're gonna be on the camera, and we're gonna drag the flyer into the animator. So it's automatically gonna take the animator component from the flyer. And I think that should set it up fine, where if we play the game, yeah. See, the up and down thing makes sense now, right? I hope, yeah. Yeah, that looks nice. So there's a slight delay, which I don't know how to fix. If you guys know how, comment down below. You teach me. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. Just a quick little tutorial on how to make flying in your game. You can attach this to any character that you want. You can add collision to this character, but it's a little wonky sometimes. And if you want proper collision, you might want to give this a rigid body. If you have any questions or have any suggestions for a tutorial I should make, put them down in the comments below. If you liked the video and it was helpful, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. And that's it. See you guys next time. Peace.